Hi, everybody. Hi, Claire. Lovely to see you again. Hello, David. Lovely to see you again.
Hi, everyone.
Katrina, oh my God, you're becoming my stalker, and I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. Stalk me as much as you like. Margaret, lovely to see you again. Harvey, lovely to, well, not see you because I can't see your face at the moment, but it's okay. If you can't have your camera on, it's fine, but it's lovely to have you here again. Oh, we've got Stanley in the waiting room, so he should be coming in as well. And Joycey, my assistant, is here too. Okay, so I'm going to let the room run. Hello, Stanley. Hope you're doing well. Are you good? Oh, I've stunned him into silence. I'm saying hello, Stanley, but it's okay. Right, so I'm just going to let the room run for a couple more minutes, see who else is joining us. But while I'm doing that, as you've all been here before, so you know what I always ask you. Please go into the chat and put in what you'd like to gain from today's session. If you've got any particular questions, feel free to put them into chat, and it does guide me. It helps me. I do always have a very set topic that I talk about at each forum. But then if you've ever seen the previous times when I've done the topic, it's always slightly different because it really just depends on who comes into the room and what you guys need from me, because that's what I'm here to do, is to make sure you guys are happy. So please do go and use the chat now and put in what you'd like to gain. If there's any particular questions or anything you're particularly stuck on, go and put it into the chat now, and that will greatly help me. Right, okay, so let me just go here, make sure my slides are up. Okay. Are you all not rushing to the chat then? Are you all just listen? You just want to listen to me and that's it? That's fine. I can talk for England, so it's not a problem. I can do that, but it does help me if I know what you're looking for. David, thank you. So sharing stories in a book, first person or third. Oh, that's a good one. Other good practice for storytelling. Yes, we'll look at that. We'll definitely, and I'll expand on that in the Q&A section as well into the forum. Okay, so I don't have anybody else in the waiting room, so I think I'll get started. And if someone does come in later, I'll just have to keep an eye out. I just sometimes forget to look up. I'm just concentrating on your faces on my slides, but I don't always see if someone's in the waiting room. But hopefully I'll see them, and if they come in, I can let them in. Okay, so let me get started. So can you all see this? Yes, okay. So if I can ask you all, put yourself on to mute if you haven't already. It just helps me just for the next few moments, really. Obviously, I don't want you to stay on mute because, well, it's a forum. You're meant to actually get involved and talk. But just for the first few minutes, as you can see, I'm on a treadmill. I'm walking and talking at the same time. I'm not very good at multitasking. So if I heard a loud noise, Lord knows what will happen. So thank you for putting yourself on mute. Okay, so thank you and welcome to the Thought Leader Author Forum. I think everyone has been here before, so you'll know the format, but I'll just go through it again. It's in two parts. The first part is where we talk about the topic of the day. So today is all about the 6 secrets that I give my clients that helps them create an inspiring book. And then part 2, my favorite bit of the forum, is when I take questions and you can talk about anything you need regarding this topic to help you understand how to create an inspiring book. Okay. And as always, because you've come here, you will get a workbook sent out via email by my awesome assistant, Joycey. She'll send it out tomorrow morning. So feel free to take notes, but you don't have to. You can just sit back, have your cup of tea or coffee, or it's lunchtime, so you can even eat your lunch if you want. I don't care. You don't have to take notes. Everything and more that I can actually cover today will be in the workbook, and that will be sent out to you tomorrow morning. And also, as always, just to thank you for coming to the Thought Leader Author Forum. We will make a donation to one of these causes, whichever one you choose, and we will donate on your behalf. So it doesn't cost you a penny or a cent. So please, in fact, let me just put that into the chat now. It's always a good idea for me to put it in while you guys are here, because I've noticed when I do that, more of you actually do it. If I leave it till later, then you guys forget. So please do use that. Like I said, it doesn't cost you anything. I'm not asking you to actually donate. I mean, you can do if you really want to, but I'll donate. Well, my business, my team and I will donate on your behalf. And then you can go away feeling really great that you've done your good job for the day. Okay, so let's go to today's topic. So what makes a book inspiring? So I decided to poll my audience. You know that I'm a fan of polling my audience and seeing what people are thinking. So I asked them, what is the most important element in nonfiction books that makes them an inspiring read? And I also explain why I give some tips in the chat. And it was neck and neck, really, with stories and practical advice. So David, you mentioned stories. Stories is a big one. Stories definitely is a big one. But I think this poll, it says a lot. Stories, but not overwhelmingly stories, because if you basically have a book that is just story based, but doesn't actually help you in any way, then that isn't inspiring. It can be, for example, somebody can read a fiction book and they're inspired by it, and that is entirely story. But you have to remember these kinds of books I'm talking about books for personal branding, for thought leadership. People pick up these books, yes, for stories, but stories that actually inspire them to do something. And that's where the practical advice comes in. So it doesn't surprise me that stories and practical advice is neck and neck, because that gives you an idea of what people are looking for. Yes, they want stories, but not just stories for the sake of stories. They need practical advice, because people buy these books because they want to know something or do something. Okay, people buy fiction and memoirs and poetry just for fun, for enjoyment, for, yes, inspiration, but it's for fun. Whereas these books, yes, they still need to be an enjoyable read, don't get me wrong, but that's not why people buy them. They don't buy them for fun. They buy them because you've essentially promised them something on the book cover. You've promised them, hey, by the time you get to the end of this book, you will know this, or you'll be able to do this. And that's what they're looking for, okay? So let me just move on. So this is the big one that I want you to internalize. This is what I found really creates inspiring books. And most people don't even know this. Even people who voraciously read these kinds of books, they're not even aware of it. What you really want to do as an author is you want to help facilitate implementation. We are a species now that just literally consumes content and we do nothing with it. And it's understandable. I found out recently that we've created more content uploaded online in the last 25 years than in the history of humankind. I believe.
No, okay. You can make an article on you.
Corinda, can I please ask you to keep your questions till that part of the forum and not during this first part of the forum? Is that okay? Thank you, Corinda. I really appreciate it. So yes, I believe the very first written content was found in, I think it's 3,500 BC. So we're talking about 5,500 years ago. Think of it, 5,500 years of content, and we've created more content in the last 20 to 25 years. That is how much content there is around the world. Okay, that is why we've now become a species that just literally consumes content, but we don't do anything with that content. That's why I have so many friends who've got bookshelf after bookshelf of self-help books, but their life's a mess. And I'm thinking, wow, your life should be amazing because you've read so many self-help books. Your life should be incredible. Why is your life such a mess? Because they're reading these books, they're even feeling inspired during the time they're reading it, but then they end the book, they put the book on the shelf, and they get on with their lives. They don't actually do anything. What truly creates an inspirational book is one where the reader not only is inspired during the point that they're reading the book, but they're inspired after the book to go and do something. So that's your job. If you want to really create an inspiring book, you want to help facilitate implementation. Okay, so I talked a little bit about this last week. If you missed last week's forum, you should have received the replay, because you guys are all registered, so you would have received the replay. I talked a little bit about this last week, where I talked about how to sequence your book chapters and understand that people are reading these books because they're at the point A, which is I don't know something, or I don't know how to do something, and when they pop out at the end, at B, at the end of your book, they should feel empowered that they now know something or they're able to go and do something. So if you missed that, go and watch the recording from last week because I went through that. But what today I'm talking about builds on this. So here we go. We've got a book. This is an example book. Actually, it's not an example book. This is my next book, but I never get a chance to write it because I'm always busy with my current clients. So it always keeps being put to the back burner. But this is going to be the next book that I write. And what I did was I went through and I sat there and thought, okay, where is that person at the beginning of my book? Well, they want to write a book, but they don't really know how to go about it. Writing a book for personal branding and thought leadership. And when they pop out at the end at B, I want them to be like, yes, I know exactly what I need to do. I know the exact steps I need to take to go and write and publish this book. Okay. So that's what I did. Now, the next job I need to do, and what I want to talk to you about, is how do I make sure they go and do that? Lots of people read inspiring books and then they put the book down and then they don't implement. How do I get them to implement this stuff? So this is what I'm talking about. How can I facilitate implementation? That's what you need to be asking yourself. How do you get your reader to actually implement what you're talking about instead of just passively reading it, which is what they do with most content in the world right now? Okay. So this is what you need to learn. And this will be in the workbook. So you don't need to start drawing this or anything like that. If you've taught before, if you're an ex-teacher or anything like that, you will know what this is. This is Bloom's Revised Taxonomy of Learning. And this is how a good teacher makes sure the learning is embedded into whoever they're teaching, whether it's a child or an adult. Think of your favorite teacher from school. I bet that teacher wasn't the teacher that just got you to read from a textbook. Yeah. Or just, wrote on a blackboard or a whiteboard and expected you to copy it down. I'm just realizing I'm showing my age now. I bet kids don't even write things down now, do they? I see them put things into a laptop or something like that. Oh my God, I'm showing my age. I was at a time where we didn't have laptops in school. You had exercise books and you had pens and pencils. Katrina's nodding and going, yes, I remember that. So sorry if there's some younger people here going, what are you talking about? What are exercise books? We had to write stuff down, kids, I know you don't have to do that nowadays. But yes, I bet it wasn't that teacher. I bet the teacher that you remember as your favorite teacher from school was someone who brought things to life, got you to actively do things and implement things. And I bet those were the lessons not only did you love, but you still recall those things. I'm amazed how much of what I learned at school has left my brain and I don't know because it was boring. But there's certain things that I still remember 30 years later and I can do it because that teacher was good. And chances are they used Bloom's Revised Taxonomy of Learning. So as you can see, the way to get people to really learn and internalize something, you start at the bottom is you get them to start remembering facts. Then you get them to understand concepts. Then you get them to apply processes. Then you get them to analyze results. Then you can get them to evaluate options. And then right to the top, I get them to create new knowledge. And what I mean by create new knowledge is knowledge that mixes what you've said to their life and it meshes together to create their own version of a new change that the book has given them. Okay, so this might be a little bit difficult for you to visualize like this. So what I've decided to do is give you an example book. Okay, so let's have a hypothetical book. And this book is aimed at business owners. And it's all about business travel related carbon emissions. Okay, so it's all about how a business can reduce their carbon emissions, well, understand carbon emissions related to business travel, and then how they go about reducing it. So let's use this hypothetical book. I'm not saying this is a book that I'm aware of. I just had to think of a book because I know that it's difficult to understand things when they're strategic. Whereas if I can give you proper examples, it will make more sense to you. Okay, so as you can see, the most basic level of getting people to actually understand and retain information instead of just passively consuming it and then forgetting it, the most basic level is remembering facts. So for example, say in this book, you want your readers to be able to quote some facts about carbon emissions from air travel to a colleague. Okay, so how many times have you read loads of statistics? I read statistics all the time. How often do you remember those statistics? Not very often, right? You see statistics all the time in newspapers and articles and you don't remember them. So this author, one of their goals might be, no, I want people to remember some of the quotes, remember some of the statistics, so they can talk to her about these quotes with their business colleagues. Okay. The best way I've found to do that is create quizzes, end of chapter quizzes. I do that for every single chapter of my book. It's only a small quiz, just 3 or 4 questions in each one. But what it does is it stops the reader from just passively continuing to consume content. Instead, it makes them go, oh, okay, let me just see how much I retained. And it makes it a little bit fun. Everyone likes beating a quiz. Everyone likes getting top marks. So the good news is the people who do answer all the questions correctly, great. That means they've actually taken that information in. The people who don't, guess what happens? You then feel compelled to go back into that chapter and figure out what was the right answer because you got it wrong. Now you're helping them remember facts. Such a simple thing. And yet I don't see many books that do it. And I'm always like, why? Even best-selling, New York Times best-selling books and Sunday Times best-selling books. And I'm like, this is such a simple thing. Just stick a flipping quiz in somewhere. And that forces people to think, hang on, did I actually take this in? Or did I just passively read something, but I didn't take any of it in? Yeah. So that's the first rung. Remembering facts, very simple thing to do. You can put some quizzes in. You don't have to put them at the end of every single chapter. Don't just shovel them in there for the sake of it. But where you think, wow, that was a lot of information that I've just thrown at somebody, I think it'll be a good idea to put a quiz here so they can see whether they actually retained any of this, whether they need to go back and review it. Yeah. And help your reader to actually remember facts. Next level up is understanding concepts. So getting them to actually understand, not just passively read through, but understand what you're trying to say in your book. So for example, say in this book, the author is wanting to help people explain how to choose airlines for business travel. I mean, let's face it, all air travel is bad for the environment, but there are better airlines who are trying to do their best in negating it. You know, they're offsetting their carbon emissions and that sort of thing. And there are some airlines that don't really give a damn. So obviously you want to do your best to support the airlines that are trying to do their best. So say in this book, this hypothetical book, the author wants the reader to understand how to choose airlines for business travel. Now, what you could do is just give them a list of things to do, just say that this is what you need to do. Or you can actually put it into a story. So what David was talking about, stories are brilliant, okay? You can talk hypothetically, and sometimes for some people, most people, very difficult for them to fully understand exactly what you're talking about. Whereas if you can give them a story, they're going to remember it. They're going to be able to put themselves into that person's shoe and they go, oh yeah, I can see how that can work for me. And the reason I put case studies are a type of story, but I found they're even more powerful than a story. A story is great, but a story that you've just made up has a certain amount of impact. When it's a case study, what you're saying is this actually happened, a true story, as it were. And people do respond to that. It's like, oh, this is real. This is another business owner who was able to choose the best airline for all their business travel. And then that the reader can see themselves in that person's shoes. So see, whenever you're trying to get a concept, however complicated or even simple concepts, see if you can back up everything that you say with a story, or even better, a case study. Whether you use yourself as a case study or whether you're using other people that you know, your network, obviously get permission, you need permission to use other people's stories. But people are usually quite happy for you to use their stories in their books, because most of the time, I would hope you're using them, you're showing them in a favorable light. So why would they not want to be in your book? But do make sure you ask them and say, hey, you know, that story you told me when we were at some networking event, I'd love to include that in my book. Is that okay? Make sure you do get permission from them. But try to back everything up with stories and case studies, okay? Next level up, applying processes. This is when we're really now starting getting into implementation, and something that I don't see many authors do, which is a shame, because if they did, you'd have more books where people actually did something after they read the book, okay? Rather than just go, yeah, that's a great book, and then just get on with their lives. So applying process, let's give it an example. So, for example, say this author wants the reader to be able to really understand why planes affect climate change. So a lot of people don't. You'll be amazed how many people are aware that air travel isn't good. But if you actually ask them, well, why is air travel not so good? They'll something around, oh, it's something gases, and yeah, it's not good for us, and just it warms up the environment. And most people have a very vague idea of why it's bad. They know it's bad, but they have a very vague idea of why it's bad. Now, what you could do, what most authors do, is just list out exactly what air travel is doing, how it's harming the environment, how it's affecting climate change, and that's it. A more savvy author will actually give them tasks. They'll say, go and find out, and they'll give you a set guided task. I want you to go online and I want you to search for this sort of thing. I want you to use these keywords and go and find out how planes affect climate change. Go and see if there's, you may even put in the guided task, see if there's any conflicting information. Let's face it, there's a lot of conflicting information. There's even people who don't even believe climate change is happening. They just think that is just a natural part of the cycle that we're in, and the human beings have got nothing to do with climate change. So it's quite interesting to find out what is the conflicting information. Can you see how that's more powerful than just telling somebody something? Getting them to go and do something, you're facilitating implementation, you're facilitating learning. And this is what makes learning fun. This is why good teachers use this kind of methodology to make learning interesting for children or adults. Next step up from that, analyzing results. This kind of takes, it's just a little step further from applying processes. So what you're doing is once you apply the processes, you could just give them the results, or you can get them to analyze their results. And again, you're facilitating implementation. So for example, following on from the last one, applying processes, so that was find out why planes affect climate change on the internet, you can get them now to analyze the results. So you can say, analyze which websites came up on researching planes and climate change. What you're doing is you're getting them to complete the process and actually record it. This is really good if you're getting them to understand a concept and say, oh, now I get it. Always remember, as human beings, we're not very good at taking on other people's point of view. Sadly, probably why there's so many wars going on the planet and we never seem to learn. We're not very good at taking on other people's point of view. We're much better when we come to that conclusion by ourselves. So what, some great manipulators do is they've learned how to get you to think like they do, but they don't tell you to think like they do. They get you to change the way you think, to think like they do. It sounds horrible and it can be used for bad, but in this case, you're using it for good. That's what you want to do as an author. You want people to come to their own conclusion, but that conclusion is actually your conclusion. So for example, here, you can get them to do that. You can get them to analyze, well, which websites are coming up? If you're getting conflicting information, why is this information conflicting? Who is behind those websites? You can get them to come up with their own solutions and record things. And again, that facilitates implementation. Next step up from that, the second from top, is evaluating options. So you can get them to actually evaluate between whatever they've recorded previously. So for example, it could be that this author wants the reader to be able to now select the most effective solutions to mitigate carbon emissions of business travel. Okay? So now you can get them to go and say, you don't just tell them, because you have to remember that all people are different. None of your readers are going to be identical. So again, a lot of authors don't do this. They just give them people a barrage of information. Instead, get them to say, well, this is the information you've got. Now I want you to go and do something with this information and actually create something. So what you're doing is you're getting them to choose the most appropriate course of action and create a set of possible alternatives. This is so crucial, guys. Like, you could, when this is done well, I've even had some authors where people have left a 5-star review for their book, and they've even said in the review, I'm only a third of the way into the book. I haven't finished it yet. And they're already leaving a 5-star review. Why? Because my authors have started to get them to implement things, go and start doing things, actually periodically put the book down and go and implement something. And that has compelled people to leave 5-star reviews, and they haven't even finished the book yet. That's how powerful this is when you can implement stuff. So always be thinking, how can I get people to actually put my book down and go and do something? Okay. Final one, right to the top, helping them to create new knowledge. So, for example, at the end of the book, this hypothetical book, it could be that the author says, I want you now, with all this information that you've learned, I want you now to create a 1-year plan that will reduce travel-related carbon emissions by 30% in your business. Really powerful, setting them a task at the end, saying you're getting them now to combine all the skills that they've got together. So they should be feeling really empowered, because remember, this book isn't like most books, which is just them passively reading this book and that's it. They've been slowly implementing, doing things throughout the book. By the time they've got to the end of the book, they have a range of skills now that they didn't even have when they opened the book. Yeah. And now they can combine those skills and create something from those skills. And in this case, create a 1-year plan. So this is, I mean, like I said, you can scribble this down if you want, but you'll get this in the workbook. This has really changed things for me, for my clients. When people read it and said, they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. I was just gonna, people do have a rough idea that, you should, put stories in and case studies, but that's about it. Most authors, even experienced authors, aren't aware of this. Okay. And when you're writing a book for thought leadership, personal branding, remember, your readers are reading it because they want a solution to something. So you're not just an author. You can't be like a fiction author or a memoir author. You just can't. You got to see yourself as a teacher as well. That's kind of what you're doing. You're teaching people, you're coaching people. So just like a good teacher will completely understand this and will know that to get people to understand, and especially children who don't always want to be at school, so you have to make things fun and you got to get them to implement. Otherwise, they're just going to run amok and not learn anything. Good teachers always use Bloom's Revised Taxonomy of Learning whenever they're doing their lesson plan. Live to copy them and do that for your book, and you'll be amazed how many people start leaving 5-star reviews and reach out to you and say thank you so much, because those are the nicest emails I get from my book, is when people say, I've done this and I've experienced this. I had this recently when someone they'd read a chapter from my book, hadn't read the entirety of my book, by the way, just read a chapter of my book, and he managed to book 19 speaking engagements around Europe just from reading my book, because he went and implemented it. That to me is worth more than 20 people email me saying, great book, great read. I'm like, that's nice. Did you actually do anything with it? No. I mean, it's still nice, don't get me wrong. Please do send me emails about, my book was great. But it's much nicer when I hear I implemented this and this is the outcome that I got from it. That's what you want to hear as an author of this kind of book. But you have to facilitate that implementation. Expecting people to implement, it just doesn't happen, because we're saturated with content now. And that is why the average person, this has got nothing to do with intelligence, I'm talking about extremely intelligent people, just passively consume content nowadays. They don't really do much with it. It is your job, as much as you can. I know you're not there, so you can't physically beat them with a stick and get them to do it. But as much as you can remotely, you want to be able to facilitate implementation. That is what creates truly inspiring books. Okay, so let me come out of this and let me have a look at your lovely faces. Oh, there you are. So what are your thoughts on that? Let me just have a quick look in the chat. What are your thoughts on that? Was this a little bit surprising? Did you think, like, I didn't realize that this is what's going to create inspiring books? Or maybe some of your ex-teachers, or you do some teaching and you're very aware of this. I'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I've run training courses where, of course, I've made it interactive, but I didn't think to put a quiz at any point in my book to make sure.
No one does. This is why I'm so surprised. And I've even worked with like sales coaches and people who go in and create workshops for corporations, and then they're writing a book and they go, and I'm like, you already do this, so why are you not doing this in your book? I didn't think I was meant to do this in my book. And it's like, but don't you want Don't you want people to read your book and implement things and actually change their lives or their businesses or whatever? Like, yeah, that's why I'm writing the book. So why would you not? One of the nicest things the nicest compliments I ever got, Katrina, from my book, and I think it's on Amazon, the reviews on Amazon, said I felt like I was in a workshop with Mitali. And I thought, yes, that's exactly what I wanted people to feel when they read my book. I want them to feel they're on a workshop with me. They're not just reading, because think about it, in a workshop, you don't just go to a workshop and just sit there and watch the trainer. That's not a workshop. That's more of a webinar. A webinar, you can sit there and you can passively, how many webinars have you been on? Plenty. I've been on plenty of webinars where you're just kind of like eating your lunch or whatever, and you're just passively consuming this content. But a workshop, if I know that I'm going to a workshop, I know I'm expected to get involved, to do something. That's what you want your book to do. Yes, you can't, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Katrina, there's always still going to be people who just completely don't implement anything. They go past your quizzes, they go past your, your implementations, your little tasks that you're setting them to do. There's nothing you can do. You can't physically be there for every single person, nor should you be, because how much are you going to charge for a book? A tenner? They don't deserve you to be, for you to go after them and make them accountable. That's actually, they really should be coming to you and asking for one-to-one coaching or group coaching then. But as much as you can do, absolutely try to facilitate implementation, try to make it feel almost like a workshop. And you'll be amazed how people reach out to you, even when they've not finished your book, and said, I've already done this. And those become great testimonials for you to use. Yeah? Corinda, you've got your hand up, my love. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to write a book, but I don't know
Yes.
where to start.
You don't know where to start.
Yeah,
You didn't come last week, did you? To the last week's forum?
yeah.
Did you come? I'm trying to remember because I've seen your
Yeah,
face.
yeah, yeah. Remember when I came?
Yes, you did. So that one actually went through. So remember, we worked out the whole point of last week's forum was
Yeah.
we work out where your readers are currently and where they need to be after they've finished your book.
Mm.
So and then you go through incrementally and work out the steps they need to go through
Yeah.
from A to B. So that's where you start. You start at A and you take them all the way to B. It sounds very simple.
Yeah.
But it is, Corinda. But the most simplest things are usually profound as well. But don't overcomplicate things. I'm always amazed. Most of my clients always say, is that it? Is that all I need to do? It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, wow, I was complicating things. I was thinking it was going to be like something amazing about how to set up chapters. Like, no. All you need to do is you're holding someone's hand and you're taking them from A, which is I don't know something or I can't do something, to B, which is I confidently know something or I can confidently do something. That's it. That's as complicated as it gets. And yet so many authors don't do this. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, it's so simple. Why are you not doing it? But they don't do it. Yeah, does that help?
Yeah.
I'm just going to read through some of the in the chats. I've got sharing stories. Has that helped you, David? Has that made you understand sharing stories? Okay, so you have a question there. First person or third person? Both. You can use both. Use yourself as a case study, but also it's good to use other people as well. Some people, I've seen some authors where it's just all about them, and you kind of like, especially when you're teaching something, if the stories are all about you, the reader might think, yeah, but that's how your life has worked out. Yeah, it's just one person. Whereas if you can show a clutch of different people, and I do that in my book, I talk about my previous clients and what they've done to leverage their book and how they've built a business or a nonprofit with their book. Because I've got 7 or 8 different people with different case studies in there, it makes a reader think, wow, all of these people are having success. This must work. Whereas if it was just me and how I leverage it, I might go, oh, Mitali, maybe you're just very well known in your particular industry. I'm not sure if it's just one person. So absolutely use yourself, but also if you can use other people, just get permission.
Thank you. I'll use mostly other people, I think. Thank you.
Yeah. And it also says other good practice for storytelling. I'll give you the main one that I always tell all of my clients, and which is don't shovel stories in for the sake of it. Some people, obviously somebody's been to some webinar a few years ago, the stories sell. So now they're shoveling stories in for the sake of it. No, you put stories in that support what you just said. So remember in the slides when I talk about understanding concepts, when you've just spoken about a concept, you bring that concept to life with a story or a case study. Don't just shovel stories in there for the sake of it. It's actually quite tiring. Mainly because remember, people are not reading these books for fun. They're reading these books because they want to accomplish something. So they're not going to appreciate you just throwing stories in there for the sake of it. I hope that helps you. Stanley says, excited to hear what the framework that is the call to action for the book to make it hard to. I hope that's helped you, Stanley. Has that given you, although ironically, you actually want them to put the book down periodically. That's what surprises some of my authors. Like, I thought I was meant to create a book that was, your page turner that people can't. It's like, no, with these kinds of books, you actually want them to put your book down and to go and do something to facilitate implementation rather than just passively read a book.
Yeah, so I put that in the chat before the program started.
Yeah.
So it was like you read my mind, or I read your mind because you already had it out there. So I was just reading what you were putting out in the universe before.
Yes.
And that's the key. That's what I wanted to know, as you do this, as you're using your book as a speaker platform,
Yes.
so you're giving your book out, do you find it to take elements, each one of those chapters, and make it like part of that workshop, each one of those specifically or intentionally, or do you find that is over the top? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yes, I do understand what you mean. So that is both. I would say both. This is actually, I cover this in a future forum, and it's all about how to get speaking engagements. And one of the key tenets of getting speaking engagements, especially when you don't have much experience, because when you've got experience, then it's kind of like a snowball, isn't it? Once you've been on a few big stages, then everyone wants a piece of you, and then it's great. You don't have to do it. The problem is, how do you get started when you're an unknown and nobody knows about you? And one of the key ways to do that is to really buddy up with event organizers and find out, well, what are you getting from this? What are you getting from this event? I'm always amazed how many novice speakers seem to think that people just put on events because for their health or something. People just put on events. And I'm like, do you know how stressful it is to put on events? I've put on just tiny, small networking events, and I'm so stressed out. I can't sleep. The 2 days previous to the event, I usually can't sleep because of, oh my God, I've forgotten this. And have I told the venue about that? And oh my God, someone's just told me they've got a dietary requirement and I don't think I've told people. And it's just such a nightmare. As soon as you start getting to events of 100 or more, it's so stressful. These people don't put on events just because they want to put on events. They're getting something from it. So whether they have some kind of back-end offer, some program or something that they funnel people through, or they have some kind of strategic alliances with businesses and they get paid, or there's something going on, there's some kind of business model. Otherwise, people would not put on events because it's so flipping stressful. So it's all about you understanding, Stanley, and budding up with these event organizers. So what are you getting from this? Let me help you. Let me support you. And that's one of the ways to get your foot in the door, especially as a novice speaker, because so many speakers never even bother asking the event organizer, what about you? It's all about them. All they think about is like, I want to get on stage. This is what I want to talk about. Blah, blah, blah. It's very narcissistic. It's all me, 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 me. And when you take the focus off you and you go to the event organizer, tell me about you. How long have you been running this event? What do you get from this? Tell me about your business model. I'd love to help you. I'd love to support you. Is there any way, unless I know your model, then I can't support you. And that is just like, it's music to event organizers' ears because they just rarely hear a speaker talk to them like that. At that point, that is when you will find out, because depending on what they want for their event, I have spoken generally about book leveraging, but then I've sometimes focused on a specific chapter or even within a chapter, a specific topic, because I know that's what the organizer wants. So I can't say do a general one for your entire book, or whether you go zone into different chapters. It really is all about you having a great relationship with an event organizer and finding out what they want from you. Does that help?
Yes, and is that in the future? I don't want to get ahead of your program. So is that in a
That
future?
is, I don't know which. I have a wonderful assistant. You can see her here, Joyce. She's in the background. She knows more than I do regarding.
That's
But
fine.
let me just quickly,
Yeah,
let
fine.
me just quickly see when that event is. Okay, so we've got. So it is in 5 weeks' time. So yes,
Yeah,
so the
5 weeks
event is
time,
called,
what do you-
6 Secrets to Author Keynote Speaking. Let me just check again, make sure I'm giving you the right. So today I'm doing 6 secrets that create inspirational books. Then we've got next week 3 common first-time author mistakes. 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, 6 weeks from today.
Okay.
6 weeks from today, I'm going to be talking about author keynote speaking and how to get started speaking when you don't have, when you're not a known speaker, so you don't have that credibility yet. So make sure you join in for that. But if you can't, don't worry, Stanley. Remember, you always get the replay sent out to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was in the same year, with the book, right?
Yeah.
When I came out, when you were in a pen, you know, Bill, you know, me and you know Bill,
Yeah, Jill from Collaboration Global.
Yeah.
Yes.
like, me and you are a pro. Does that mean, like, we have, like, a book with her, or, like, the book that we got?
So sorry, did you mean you want to? Do you want to collaborate on a book with Jill? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Or you're talking about her existing book?
This book,
Her existing book. Okay, so
Yeah.
what about her existing book?
like, we have, like, word,
Yeah.
right, with the collaboration.
Yes.
It's got human in writing, but not pictures. Is that normal? Or is that like just the writing and pictures?
Good question, Corinda. Okay, so I wish I can. Sometimes I do sometimes feel like a bit like a politician with some of my answers. I want to be able to just give specific answers, but I can't. It really is dependent. Just so exactly what I said before. I said to David, stories are great. Just don't shoehorn them in. They've got to make sense. Same with quizzes. I did end of chapter quizzes because the way I made my chapters, each one individually felt like a bit of a workshop, so you can have an end of chapter quiz. But for some people, it'd be silly putting in quizzes at the end of certain chapters because it was maybe more to do with mindset, and it really wasn't anything to implement there. So you don't just shoehorn in quizzes. Same thing with images, Corinda. You don't just shoehorn images in because you think, oh my God, I've gone 10 pages and there isn't an image in my book. People are not going to be happy with you sticking an image in that doesn't need to be in there. But if you need it, that old saying, an image says 1,000 words. Graphs say even more, graphs or infographics. It's all about facilitating learning. And it is, I would refer you to go back to, I know you were there last week, but maybe re-watching last week's forum. It's all about taking somebody from A, which is I don't know something or I can't do something, to B, which is I know exactly what to do. I know this subject inside out now. So you need to take them from A through to B. And whatever facilitates you taking people from A to B, you implement. So where stories are necessary, where case studies are necessary, where images are necessary, because you'll get the point across faster than you writing 5 or 6 paragraphs. But I'm not going to tell you, is it all right to, Jill doesn't have many images in a book. Well, obviously when she felt that her words were enough. It didn't need illustrating with an image or graph. But where she has added them in was when she felt she needed it. So it's all about you putting yourself into the shoes of your author instead of yourself. And that is the key. That's the key thing that I get my clients to do. I think one of the biggest issues that first-time authors have is they're talking from their point of view, which is fine if you're writing fiction or you're writing a memoir or an autobiography, then it should be all about you. But these books, actually, you should not be at the center. Your reader should be at the center. What do they need from you? And then you manage everything regarding that. Yes. So I can't say whether Jill has enough images or not enough images, or whether that's right or wrong. There is no right or wrong here. You put these images and graphs and infographics in, so long as they actually facilitate learning and they're helping your reader.
Right.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Oh, Claire's book, I think if you want to make the book into an audiobook, that's very true. That's actually very, very true. Actually, one of my clients did that. She was very, very graphs-laden book. And what we ended up having to do with the audiobook is we had to get her to write new sections of a book that are not in her book, just for the audiobook version. So yes,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right, Claire.
Some of them have like a PDF that you can download, but first of all, you cannot download the PDF from the Audible app. So if you're listening, you're out and about walking, or you're out somewhere, then you've got to go back to your computer, download the damn PDF,
Which
then
is
go back.
frustrating.
It's such a faff. So
Yeah.
I think if you think that book is going to be an audio book, like, I think just avoid pictures really, unless it's something very simple that you can describe in the text, because it is frustrating when you're in mid-flow with something and then they're like, and you need to look at the PDF to check out this picture. You're like, I don't have the PDF right now to stop listening. You're on your walk.
It defeats the whole point of the audiobook. The audiobook, the reason why people love audiobooks is they don't have time to read books. So then they can get on with the washing or walking the dog or doing whatever while they're learning. That's the whole point of audiobooks. So as soon as you're in the middle, you're sort of like, now you need to go and download this thing. You're like, I should have just read the book then, you know? So yeah, you're absolutely right. So that again goes back to what we were still talking about before, Corinda. Absolutely put in images, but don't shovel them in, because especially if you're going to be creating an audiobook in the future, it can be shooting yourself in the foot, or at the very least making more work for yourself, because you now need to describe those sections that are not in the book, just specifically for the audiobook. Yeah, does that make sense? Awesome. Oh, okay, so before I take any more questions, what I'd love to do is, if you've got any further questions, I'd love to speak to you. Some of you have already had one-to-ones before, but the few of you that I haven't, please do get on a book idea audit with me, because I'll be able to go through your idea, and I promise I'll be brutally honest. If you've got a terrible idea, I will actually tell you, that's a terrible idea. Please don't do that, because you'll be amazed. I think I speak to at least one, maybe two people, two authors a month, who come to me and they want help leveraging their books and marketing their books. And then I look at their book, and their book is great, but it just was a terrible book for them. And I'm just thinking, I don't know how to help you. And there's some people who even want to use my marketing and PR experts, and I actually turn them away, because I say, but this book, although the book is good, it's terrible for you. It's not going to give you what you need for your business or brand. So all I'll be doing is taking loads of money from you for marketing and PR. When are you going to get return on investment? That's not going to make me feel good. It's not going to make me sleep at night knowing that I'm taking money from somebody and then not getting return on investment. So if you're thinking about writing a book, please get on an audit with me, because I can save you so much hassle. If it's a terrible book idea for you, I promise I'll tell you. If it's a great book idea, then fantastic, then you know. So let me show you how you can do that. So we'll go back to here. So, this is just, a small selection of my Hall of Fame. So this is the kind of thing that my clients do. They end up on stages, they end up on broadsheet papers, they end up on TV. It's all about getting your mission and your values out there in a big way. That's kind of what this book's about. So this just give you, I've published 47 authors now, so they all have 5-star reviews. So I can only show you a handful of them. But see, have a look at the wording of these reviews. This is the kind of reviews you want. It's not just about getting 5-star reviews. It's getting 5-star reviews where people actually say they've done something. That's what's going to really make you feel good. 5-star reviews make you feel good, don't get me wrong. But it's the ones that actually that make you think, wow, somebody actually listened to this and went and did something with it. So here we go. We've got Captain John Novato, brilliant gentleman over in the States that I worked with about 3 years ago. And he said, I've already implemented a few of the ideas on my first shift after reading it. What an amazing, it's such a short review as well, but that's what you need. I've already implemented this. Yeah. Dan, brilliant book, Dan. I use every day, not only for the workout, but to give myself a kick of the behind to go and do a workout. Dan's written a fantastic book, by the way. He lost the use of his legs, and he was told that he needs to exercise every single day because obviously he's very sedentary now. He's in a wheelchair all the time. And yet people in a wheelchair, they can only work out, most workouts, they need a secondary person to spot them, basically. Otherwise, it's quite dangerous for them to work out on their own, which is ridiculous. You're telling people, disabled people, they need to work out, but you need to have somebody with you every single time that you work out. It's not always possible, which is why a lot of disabled people in wheelchairs do end up becoming very unhealthy. So he created a book that shows people how to do a full body workout on your own safely without a second person there. So this book is doing well around the world and it's helping all these people in wheelchairs. But this is what makes Dan tick. Someone actually saying, I use this every day. That's what you want. You want people actually implementing. And that's what you want your book to do. Don't get people to just passively read your book. Okay. So this is what we'll discuss in the book idea audit. We will look at your book. I'll make sure that it's the right idea for you. Then we can go into how I can help you plan and write it. I'll go through how we can edit, design, and publish the book, and also what we can do post-publishing in terms of marketing and PR. So we'll look at your book idea, and like I said, I will be brutally honest. If your book idea is not good for you, I will tell you now, and then that way you can save your time and energy and money and focus on something else. If the book is a good idea and it does fit what you needed to do for you, then part 2 will look at the process that will help you succeed. And part 3, only if I feel there's a fit and we can work together. At that point, I'll show you my program, the Thought Leader Orca System. We can actually look at things like how long it takes, how much it costs, but only if it fits. It doesn't fit everybody. It's not for everybody. But at the very least, you'll walk away from this knowing whether your book idea's got legs or whether you really need to shelve it and think of something else. So at the very least, you will get answers, okay? So if you want to do this, in fact, let me put this into the chat now. Here we go. So let me know if you can see this in the chat. Okay, so when you go in there, you just come to this page, and as you can see, I've already got Calendly embedded in. So you know how Calendly works, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah, I know how it works.
Excellent, Corinda. So all you have to do is just click on what time
Yeah,
of day
and
that
then
works
put
for
your
you.
name in, and then blah, blah, blah.
Perfect. There we go. I'll just answer the questions. These will help me because it'll give me an idea of exactly where you are. So do answer the questions. It'll only take you a minute or so, but do answer the questions because we've got 45 minutes. I want to make sure we hit the ground running. If you don't answer these questions, then what ends up happening is I waste 10, 15 minutes of the call just figuring out where you are. Whereas this will give me an idea of where you are. So as soon as you get on, it's like, right, let's get to it. Let's make these 45 minutes.
Yeah, I have put you a full Emily for next week.
Have you booked, Corinda, did you say?
Yeah.
I haven't had the notification, but I'm sure, I'm pretty sure probably my assistant has already got it. So yeah, that's great. I look forward to speaking to you, Corinda.
Yeah.
Hearing more about your book idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so any final questions or any thoughts before we go? Oh, I said hello, Alan. I didn't say hello to you there.
Yeah. Like, no one keep making me in the
Yeah.
what is being seen, and I keep telling them, but I let you tell people what being seen.
Yes, correct. We've got Henry Cameron. How are you doing, my love?
Hey.
Hello, I've not seen your lovely face in a long time. How are you doing?
So good to see you. Sorry I'm late. I had a podcast episode that went long.
We're about to wrap up here, so you're very late.
I know. I just wanted to pop in and say hi.
Hello, I hope you're doing well, my love. It's so nice to see you. It's been a few months since I've seen you. I hope you're doing well. But yes, I'm about to wrap up now, but we'll make sure you get the replay, Henry Cameron, so don't worry.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You'll get the replay. Any final thoughts or questions before we go? Everyone seems happy. Okay, so the best advice I can give you guys is, this was inline. Thank you, Stanley. Please do. I'm not saying you have to shoehorn everything from Bloom's taxonomy of learning. I didn't. I think I used 4 out of the 6. So don't just shoehorn them in, but just think when anytime you're teaching a concept, how can you get someone to internalize it? First of all, remember it, because most people just read stuff and they don't even remember what they've read. And then the second thing is, what can you do to get them to implement stuff? As soon as you start getting them to do that, that is when you end up with reviews like Dan has got, you know, saying that I use this every day. That is the kind of reviews you want. Not just, yeah, this is a great book and inspired me, but true inspiration comes from people actually changing how they do something or how they think about something. Yeah, a lot of people think inspiration is like these quotes that you get on Instagram. I mean, I see those quotes every single day. They're not changing my life in any way. Do you know what I mean? I just look at them and go, oh, that's a nice quote. And I just carry on with my life. That's not true inspiration. True inspiration is getting people to change how they do something. Yeah. And the only way you can do that is to help them facilitate implementation. So always be thinking, how can I get people to go back and reread things? How can I get people to review things? How can I get people to momentarily put my book down and go and do something? That is how you facilitate change. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoy this. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Claire. And I will see you at a future forum, I hope. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.